Hello, class. This is chapter 13, using technology to manage information. Some learning outcomes related to chapter 13. When you read through the learning outcomes, remember to go through the chapter outlines and the textbook to review the content and answers related to these learning objectives. It states it clearly in the learning outcomes in the chapter outline. So how has information technology transformed business and managerial decision making? Why are computer networks an important part of today's information technology system? What types of systems make up a typical company's management information system? How can technology management and planning help companies optimize their information technology systems? What are the best ways to protect computers and information they contain? What are the leading trends in information technology? Having a good information technology system to run your organization is critical to the operations of your business. Keep that in mind. Here's a table related to business computing equipment. It talks about tablets, personal computers that are desktop, laptop computers, mainframe computers, mini computers, servers, supercomputers. Read through the description and comments related to each of these computer types. Table 3.2, business computing software. So you have to understand the difference between hardware and software. Hardware is your keyboard, your monitor screen, and your either desktop, right? The tablet or the iPhone or the Samsung phone, those smartphones, those are the hardwares of the technology. The software systems are like the databases, publishing software, Microsoft Word, those type of things. Those are considered software. Table 3.2 does a great job in describing the application type and description. For this table, it is in your textbook. And take a look at also again at the chapter outlines as well. This is the concept check for section 1 of the learning objective. Questions to consider while reading the chapter. Here's a video that I want to show. Here we go.
Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, to the 3 people in the world who don't know who you are, let me just acclaim you for a moment, recognized endlessly as being one of the world's top leadership thinker, if not the top leadership thinker, known as the #1 executive coach in the world, author of numerous books, 3 of them at least New York Times bestsellers. So I'm excited to talk to you. I am an author. I feel like I'm in that hymn, Good King Wenceslas. You know, Good King Wenceslas is out in front and the person's behind walking in their footsteps. I'm that person walking in their footsteps.
Thank you.
I'm an author myself, and my book, In the Coaching Habit, it is an acclamation of the importance of questions. It's like what I'm trying to do is to have people stay curious a little bit longer, rush to action and advice giving a little bit more slowly. And I'm pretty sure my approach and my fantasizing and obsessing about the importance of questions is aligned with your approach to how you think about coaching and what you think is important in the world. So can you tell me more about that?
Yes, a couple of examples.
Yeah.
One is Peter Drucker taught me the fact that today we manage knowledge workers.
Right.
Knowledge worker knows more about what they're doing than the boss. The history of leadership was the boss was superior to the people being led. Bigger, stronger, smarter, talk to God, whatever, superior.
Yeah.
Well, that's yesterday, that's not tomorrow. Today, most of us manage people called knowledge workers. If I'm a CEO and I know more about marketing than the marketing person or finance than the finance person, I don't have a leadership problem, I have a selection problem with the wrong people. You want them to know more than you. Well, when people know more than you can't tell them what to do and how to do it. They already know. You have to ask, you have to listen, you have to learn. One of the great leaders that we both know is Alan Mulally. Alan, former CEO of Ford, fantastic leader. And Alan tells a story. He was in a meeting and he encourages people, red, yellow, green, on top 5 priorities. Green, I'm on plan. Red, I'm not on plan, don't know how to get there. And yellow, I got a strategy.
Yeah.
His first meeting, everything's green, and they're losing $17 billion. Alan goes, well, it's not so good. Let's do this again. Finally, someone said red, and Alan goes, well, you know, you don't know where you are and how to get there. And he said, I don't either. I know less than you.
Right.
Well, that's
What a moment.
Brilliant.
What a moment to, because this is with all the senior leaders of Ford.
Yeah.
And they're kind of testing him because it's early on in his days, right?
Right.
And if there's ever a moment you would think a CEO is going to go, let me show you how I can save the moment, because we are losing millions and billions of dollars. There's pressure on me from the board to turn this around. But instead of that, he does something different. What does he do?
He says, I know less than you. Why don't we actually find people and ask them for the answers?
Right.
Well, they found out the answers were 3 or 4 levels below them in the company. So I love your philosophy of asking in this advice trap.
Yes.
JP Garnier was one of my coaching clients. JP was a CEO of GlaxoSmithKline. I asked JP, what'd you learn about leadership as a CEO? He said, I've learned a hard lesson.
Yeah.
He said, my suggestions become orders.
Yeah.
My suggestions become orders. And I said, if they're smart, they're orders. And if they're stupid, they're orders. If I want them to be orders, orders. If I don't, they're orders anyway. My suggestions are orders. So I said, what'd you learn from me? He said, before I speak, stop and breathe and ask one question. Is it worth it?
Yeah.
Is it worth it? And this advice trap that you talk about, very profound. What we don't realize as leaders, our suggestions tend to become orders.
Right. They suck the oxygen of creativity out of the room. Everybody's like, that's a good suggestion, boss. Let me just write that down. I think I'm going to do this idea because you gave it to me.
In that Ford case study, if Alan would have said, have you thought of?
Yeah.
What would have happened? Sir, yes, sir. Thought of it now, boss.
Exactly.
Yes, Mr. CEO.
I call have you thought of fake questions,
Yeah.
because it's just advice with a question mark attached on the end.
Exactly.
Nobody's thinking it's a question at all.
Everybody says, go do it.
Yeah.
And so I think what you're doing is brilliant. The advice trap, getting leaders to have that discipline to stop and breathe.
Yeah.
And a great question, Alan, is, am I the world's expert on this topic?
Yeah.
If I'm not, why am I talking?
Exactly.
Okay. And let's look at another video here.
So, really glad to be here with you. So when I arrived, there was a long line all the way around the building. So I got in line, and then I was standing there, and the person in front of me turned around and said, aren't you Alan Mulally? And I said, and you know, of course, working at Boeing and Ford, you don't know whether they had a bad flight or they didn't like their last Explorer. And I said, I am. They said, aren't you speaking today? And I said, I am. And they said, well, you can't stand in this line. So this person walked me up to the front of the line through all the security and got me in. I said, this is really a nice conference. A lot of nice people here. So just one funny story about the American Icon book, and Will was describing it. So we had a lot of journalists that wanted to write the story about the transformation of Ford. And all the major universities wanted to write their case studies. And so we selected Bryce Hoffman, who's very knowledgeable, and we trusted him. And we gave him access to Bill Ford, myself, the entire board, and all of the employees. And he did, boy, did he do his homework. And we didn't have any editorial rights or financial interests. And he gave me a copy of the book before he released it. And so I'm sitting in Dearborn, and I'm reading this book, and I couldn't put it down. And it was like reading The Godfather, and all the characters and all the things they're going through, and I kept reading it. And my wife of 48 years came over and said, you know, honey, it's getting late. What are you reading? I said, well, I'm reading this book about the transformation of Ford. And she said, honey, it's late. Do you know how it turned out? Go to bed. So it is a fun read. Okay, so I asked Will, what could I do to add value to your life today? And he said, well, and he talked to me about restoration. And he said, you know, you've been in the middle of restoration for your entire career at Boeing and at Ford. And could you just share that with all the participants? And especially your focus on talented people working together to create value. And I said, sure. So what I thought I'd do is take you through my journey and and really focus not only on Boeing and Ford, but also working together. So does it sound like an okay plan? Okay, we always have a plan at Boeing and at Ford. Okay, so I was really captivated when President Kennedy got on TV and he said we're going to go to the moon and we're going to learn a lot about space. We're going to learn a lot about ourselves, and the things that we're going to develop would help further develop humankind. And so that was compelling to me, and I joined the Air Force and I learned to fly, and they were doing all these tests on us, and it turned out that I had some color blindness in shades of gray. And the first lunar landings were going to be manual, so you had to be able to see the shades of gray. So I just didn't have the right stuff to continue. So I went back to finish graduate school in aeronautical engineering, and my thesis advisor had been the head of aerodynamics at Boeing. And so he said, Alan, and I was so kind of sad, obviously, and he said, you could really find your love by designing commercial airplanes. And he took me to Seattle and the Emerald City, and I saw Boeing, I saw these airplanes, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I joined Boeing, and I had the honor to serve on the design team of every Boeing airplane. The 707, the 727, I love to go through these slowly, the 737, the 747. I was the chief engineer for the cockpit and the flight management computer and the autopilot and the auto throttle design for the 757 and the 767. And then they asked me to be the chief engineer for the 777 airplane. And then as the CEO of Boeing, I helped launch the 787. And if you look at all of the seats that are flying today worldwide, 70% of the seats are in Boeing airplanes. So I'd propose to you that if it's not a Boeing airplane, you probably shouldn't be going. Just kidding. Airbus is making a good product today too. So commercial airplanes are really sophisticated, and they're very complicated, probably the most sophisticated products in the world. An average commercial airplane has around 4 million parts, and you think about the safety requirements and the reliability and the maintainability, and the fact that they carry 200 to 300 people halfway around the world. Very, very sophisticated products. And when you're designing a new airplane, you usually have between 500 and 600,000 people around the world that are contributing to the creation of these brand new 4 million parts that are going to fly together. So it's really important that you have a compelling vision for the airplane and a strategy for achieving it, and also a relentless implementation plan. So over the years, participating in all these airplane programs, I wanted to share with you the lessons that I've learned about working together. So I still do all my own slides. So I have one slide that I want to show you that captures everything that I know, okay? So if we can show my slide, my working together slide. How do you like that progressive disclosure? Is that so cool? That's my airplane. Okay, so you might think about this a little bit as I go through these. I'm going to say just a couple of words about each one. People first, that's kind of code for love them up. I mean, you have all these talented people that are working together. They're going to dedicate their lives to creating these fantastic vehicles. And they need to be loved and be appreciated and thanked and encouraged. Everyone is included as a big deal, meaning that all of the stakeholders, the employees, the airlines themselves, the traveling public, all the suppliers, the financiers, the pilots, the investors, everybody needs to be included on the plan because these are such a huge, huge investment for Boeing, but also for the world. Compelling vision, comprehensive strategy, the relentless implementation plan. We talked about the vision, the strategy, not only the technical strategy, but the working together strategy, the financing strategy. And as you know, it takes about 4 to 5 years to develop a new airplane. And the airlines they actually pay payments along the way, so by the time you deliver the airplane, they own it. And they've already sold the tickets, they got the routes all set up around the world. So this is the biggest decision they'll ever make for the success of their company. The relentless implementation plan gets a lot of press over the years because that's the business plan review. That's the meeting that we have every week. We have everybody around the world, all networked, all the leadership team, wherever they are, and we go through the vision, the strategy, the plan, and also the status against the plan. And we actually color code how it's going. Green, it's on plan. Yellow, it has an issue that we have a solution. In red, we have a new issue, but we don't have a solution yet. Clear performance goals, clearly, one plan, facts and data. We love what people think and their opinion, but what does the data say that we're drawing our conclusions from? The next one is really interesting. Everyone knows the plan, really. Everyone's going to know the plan, everyone's going to know the status, and everyone's going to know that areas need special attention. And most businesses today, as you know, do not subscribe to this principle and practices. You have the people that kind of know what they know, and then they kind of share what they know, and then people are wondering what they know. And so when you do anything like a commercial airplane, everybody has to know what the plan is. And you have to be confident enough that you're creating an environment where everybody knows what the status is. We actually color code the charts so we can tell very easily. And we know what needs special attention. And then you can see the attitudes: propose a plan, find a way, can do. It just doesn't work to be negative, because you got to believe the talented people are going to solve all the issues when you're breaking wings and blowing up engines, because you're creating this new product out of nothing. Respect each other, listen to each other, appreciate each other. Emotional resilience is a big deal, because if you're the leader and you act like it's over, because everybody's watching you and they think you know everything. And so it's really important that you trust the process, but you also trust each other, and the fact that you're going to work together to turn the reds, the yellows, the greens. So have fun. I've never enjoyed anything as much as being on these airplane programs. Airplanes actually were the first internet. We actually got people together around the world. And as you know, when you get people together, you find out you have more in common than you're different, and you can choose to work together for the greater good. The last one, also enjoy the journey in each other. The corollary to this is never any humor at anybody else's expense. As you know, it's never funny. It's never funny, and people will go along to get along. But the reason this is so important in the environment I'm describing is that if anybody thinks they're going to be a victim or they're going to be made fun of, then they're going to be reluctant to share what the real situation is. Because most companies, the policy still is you only bring an issue to your supervisor or your leader if you have a solution. So now you're managing a secret. You really don't know what the situation is. So no humor ever at anybody else's expense. So that's all I got. That's all I know. You got any questions? Okay, well, a couple more things. My airplane. I have to tell you about my airplane. So as an aeronautical engineer, wherever I was around the world.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it here. I know looking at this from 10 minutes, but there's the remaining 30 minutes that I want you to watch fully. Take a look at that. When you click the share, when you right click on the PowerPoint, just click copy video URL and make sure that you watch this video, the last 30 minutes of it. All right. Some questions to consider for these videos. Here's a scene from Moneyball, and I think this is a great scene depicting technology. I don't know if you heard of Moneyball, but it's with Brad Pitt. Here we go.
Hello.
Who are you?
I'm Peter Brand.
What do you do?
I'm special assistant to Mark Shapiro.
So what do you do?
Mostly player analysis right now.
Been on the job long? First job in baseball?
It's my first job anywhere.
Wow, congrats.
Thank you.
First job. Whose nephew are you? Why does Mark listen to you?
I don't think he does very often.
He just did.
Well, in that circumstance, I think he was more listening to Bruce than myself.
Who are you?
I'm Peter Brand.
I don't give a rat's ass what your name is. What happened in there? What happened in that room?
I'm not quite quite sure what you're asking me, Mr. Bean.
What did you tell Bruce?
Just told Bruce I like Garcia.
You like Garcia. Why? Why?
There is an epidemic failure within the game to understand what is really happening. And this leads people who run Major League Baseball teams to misjudge their players and mismanage their teams. I apologize.
Go on.
Okay, people who run ball clubs, they think in terms of buying players. Your goal shouldn't be to buy players. Your goal should be to buy wins. And in order to buy wins, you need to buy runs. You're trying to replace Johnny Damon. The Boston Red Sox see Johnny Damon and they see a star who's worth $7.5 million a year. When I see Johnny Damon, what I see is an imperfect understanding of where runs come from. The guy's got a great glove. He's a decent leadoff hitter. He can steal bases, but is he worth the $7.5 million a year that the Boston Red Sox are paying him? No. Baseball thinking is medieval. They are asking all the wrong questions. And if I say it to anybody, I'm ostracized. I'm a leper. So that's why I'm cagey about this with you. That's why I respect you, Mr. Bean. And if you want full disclosure, I think it's a good thing that you got Damon off of your payroll. I think it opens up all kinds of interesting possibilities.
Okay. So here are some questions to consider when watching that scene in Moneyball. What is analytics, right? Analytics is statistical data analysis based on data, right? And when you're running that, are you comfortable relying on the computer algorithm and data, right? Or some people are old school and they rely on instincts. So that's just something to consider. Some questions like the pros and cons. And would you be happier if you had more robust budget to acquire star players than having to rely on analytics, right? Think about that. And here is a exhibit 13.4 about VPNs, virtual private networks. An exhibit regarding the ASP relationship. Some concept checks for section 2. More exhibits about an information system. Concept checks for number 3. And here's some information that I think would be very interesting regarding telemedicine, how technology has entered the medical field.
Video conferencing has become so commonplace that we've grown comfortable communicating with one another through pixels on a screen. That comfort, combined with rapid advances in health monitoring technology, is fueling a new boom in telemedicine. Teladoc, a big player in providing video and telephone medical consults, had an extremely successful launch. When it went public on the stock market earlier this month, it raised more than $270 million on the first day. As Hari Srinivasan explains, telemedicine is beginning to transform the way we experience the medical system. It is the latest in our Breakthrough series on invention and innovation.
A simple ritual like gardening on a hot summer day is something Tom and Tricia Yorhammer don't take for granted anymore.
Can you use some basil?
Just a year ago, Tom had a massive stroke.
I was sitting right next door here in this room watching TV. Well, time to go to bed. So I got up and walked up the stairs, and I didn't make it. I collapsed short of the bed.
The paramedics took Tom, who was paralyzed on his left side, to nearby Mercy General Hospital in Sacramento. With blood seeping into his skull, creating enormous pressure on his brain, time was of the essence. That's when a telestroke robot was deployed to the ER.
Pretty soon this machine came toward me, and in the screen appeared a doctor. And he said, "Good evening, my name is Dr. Nee. I'm a neurologist and I'm here to examine your husband." And lo and behold, that robot turned around, went around the bed to the other side and started examining Tom. It was remarkable.
Dr. Nee was also able to remotely access CT scans and other vital data needed to quickly determine Tom's surgical needs. Mercy is one of 43 Dignity Health hospitals in the West using the telestroke robot, and there are others in use all over the U.S.
All right, so it seems like you have a left-sided weakness. And this
We got a demonstration from Dr. Assad Chowdhury, he's the one on the screen, and nurse Eleanor Vigilante.
It's faster for us to always use teleneurology because our physicians are not 24 hours a day in the building. And so we can actually get a physician to the bedside of a patient within 3 to 6 minutes.
and 3 to 6 minutes is the difference between what?
Every minute that we waste is potentially more brain function that's lost.
Do the same thing with your left hand if you can.
Stroke is the leading cause of serious long-term disability in the United States. Widespread use of telemedicine for stroke care is improving patient outcomes.
Okay, doctor, you can come out in.
Hoping to build on its success in hospitals, the telehealth industry is now focused on bringing more basic healthcare services directly to patients wherever they may be.
No pain there.
From the comfort of her San Francisco home, Dr. Ravina Rihal is diagnosing and treating patients for primary care ailments like sinusitis, pink eye, and bladder infections.
A patient can download the app on their mobile device, either laptop, iPhone, or tablet, and if they want to see a doctor, they just press a button and they will connect to a doctor that's licensed in their state and can see them over video.
Rihal works for Doctor on Demand.
How are you, Nassim?
One of a handful of companies connecting patients with physicians almost instantaneously.
Hi there, I'm Dr. Rihal with Doctor on Demand. Welcome.
On the day we visited, Rihal took a call from Carmen Crandall and her 11-year-old daughter, Alexandra McCamick from Naples, Florida.
If you feel here, do you feel any lumps or bumps?
Feels a little swollen in here, just a little bit.
And now I want you to bring the camera real close to your mouth and say, ah.
Can we see?
Yep, I got a good look there. It looks red, but I don't see any white patches. You can point the camera in the back of your throat and get a really good look at tonsils. It surpassed my expectations, the technology piece of it. And I think the future holds even more with all the wearable devices and all the information we're going to be able to transmit soon.
By the end of a 13-minute exam, which cost $40, Alexandra was diagnosed with viral sinusitis, and her prescriptions were sent to a nearby pharmacy electronically.
Why did you choose this service? Why not just go to a doctor that's in Naples?
You can't get an appointment. I mean, if your child is sick and you call and they say they can't see you until next week, it's pointless. Then you end up going to the emergency care clinic that costs $100 for your copay. So why not pay $40 and do it right then?
How's that going?
Beyond the convenience factor, Doctor on Demand's chief medical officer, Dr. Pat Basu, says the cost savings on a large scale add up.
In the United States, there's a total of about 1.3 billion total cases where people walk in to see a doctor. Of the type the Doctor on Demand is ideal for, you're talking about 300 to 400 million that we could treat.
You've got some residual cost.
At a rate of $40 per telemedicine visit versus an average of $1,000 for a trip to the emergency room, or about $300 for urgent care, Basu says the potential savings are enormous.
Right off the bat, that would save $25 billion to the U.S. healthcare system.
Such figures have caught the attention of insurance companies. In April, United Healthcare, the largest private insurer in the U.S., launched a partnership with 3 telemedicine companies, Now Clinic, American Well, and Doctor on Demand, to cover video-based physician visits just as it covers in-person visits.
Just review your medicine.
Health industry observers say it's the strongest sign yet that telemedicine is entering the mainstream.
Now we have over 20 million patients who have access to Doctor on Demand through insurance. On the government side, Medicaid and Medicare, that progression has still not fully occurred, but we are in conversations with state Medicaid agencies and national Medicare to cover this.
I'm going to tap on the tendon.
Dr. Abraham Verghese, vice chair of Stanford School of Medicine, applauds the efficiencies and cost-saving telemedicine will bring, but he's concerned about preserving the doctor-patient relationship.
A very important, I would say, ministerial function of being a physician is to be attentive, is to be present, is to listen to that story, is to locate the symptoms on the person of that patient, not on some screen, not on some lab result, but on them.
Do you ever feel like that you're missing something by not being able to touch the patient?
No. If I was taking care of heart failure and diabetes and things like that, I think I would feel really uncomfortable doing that over video. But the more common things that I'm taking care of, I feel good about what I'm doing, and I feel like I actually connect with the patients really well.
Even though Doctor on Demand chooses not to allow its home-based doctors to treat serious illnesses, outdated regulations don't necessarily prevent them from doing that. Verghese says the industry needs some clear national guidelines.
I have no doubt that we're going to learn a lot more about the blessings and pitfalls of telemedicine as more and more people start to do it. I suspect we're going to realize that it's very good for some things, and there'll be a fairly hazardous, tiny little live wire area that perhaps will develop guidelines that you don't go near.
National regulation won't be easy, as all 50 states have their own unique laws governing the practice of telemedicine. Something Krista Natoli, Associate Director of the Center for Telehealth and eHealth Law, spends her time studying.
States really focus a lot on the physician-patient relationship and physical examination. But states that are clear will say and define what an appropriate examination looks like. States that are vague do not define what appropriate means in any context. It's in the gray area where states are silent on these issues that could potentially lead to patient harm.
As policymakers determine how to define and regulate the industry, there are a growing number of patients who've experienced virtual medicine firsthand.
6-pounder.
In the years since his stroke, Tom Urhammer has fully recovered. He and his wife Tricia are grateful to be back to their normal routine. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Hari Srinivasan in Northern California.
All right. So here's some questions related to telemedicine. And what are your thoughts on telemedicine? Do you think this is easier access and lower cost to have a virtual doctor visit, save time, money, and gas? Or do you think it loses the personal touch? Right? Aside from these questions to consider, what are your thoughts on that? What do you expect your experience to be at a doctor's office? Right? Here are some table 13.3 questions for IT project planning to have that infrastructure in your organization. Some questions to consider. Here's concept check for section 4. Remember, the chapter outlines and the textbook gives you all that information and response and answers to these questions. Here's a video that I'd like you to see.
All organizations learn and possess knowledge. This knowledge is dispersed in the relationship between people and information resources and is usually an organization's greatest asset. Organizational knowledge sharing practices account for all formal and informal activities through which knowledge is created and shared within an organization. Knowledge sharing is a stage in the knowledge management cycle. In its simplest form, knowledge management is an organization's ability to identify, acquire, create, organize, share, and use knowledge to create value within that organization. Knowledge sharing is about creating an organizational culture where people are the driving force, and information can be captured, codified, and shared such that the right knowledge can be retrieved and applied by the right person at the right time. Organizational knowledge is becoming an increasingly valuable asset in today's hyper-competitive market. It can be a source of strategic advantage through the ability to create, share, and disseminate new knowledge into innovative products and technologies. Knowledge is unique in that its value grows as it is shared. It can be given away time after time, but is never lost by its original owner. Organizational knowledge can be distinguished from knowledge in an educational setting in that it is action-oriented, contextual, and collective by nature. It is unique to each organization and difficult to replicate, as no two companies have followed the same path and history of learning experiences. Knowledge can be categorized into two types, tacit knowledge and explicit knowledge. Tacit knowledge is dynamic. It is knowledge that is embedded in the experiences and expertise of individuals, as well as in the beliefs, values, and culture of the respective organization. Explicit knowledge is codified in organizational resources such as documents, policies, artifacts, and procedures. It is tangible and can be identified and measured more easily than tacit knowledge. Although tacit knowledge is more difficult to capture, it is more valuable than explicit knowledge as it contributes more heavily towards intellectual capital. Tacit knowledge also requires trust and relationships in order to be shared effectively. An effective knowledge-sharing strategy relies heavily on social components such as organizational culture and internal networks. Technology also plays an important part of the process, and for this reason, selecting implementing tools and technologies to improve the flow of knowledge should be carefully considered. There are several technologies an organization might choose to use to support knowledge sharing. These range from basic tools such as email, databases, intranet, and knowledge repositories, to more complex tools such as knowledge management systems and workflow technologies. Selected technologies should be accessible and be easily integrated into workflows while remaining flexible enough to foster interaction between sources of knowledge. Adequate training, incentive plans, and support from management are also required to ensure knowledge-sharing applications are implemented smoothly. A strong internal network ensures that employees are aware of who holds certain knowledge within the organization and how to reach them to access the necessary information they are seeking. Knowledge sharing naturally occurs along existing connections within an organization, and an effective knowledge sharing strategy will create more of these links. Communities of practice are groups of people with shared backgrounds and expertise who are driven by a common goal, coming together to share and learn from each other, either in person or virtually. There are many benefits to creating communities of practice, including increased performance and productivity, as well as faster, smarter decision-making and innovation. An efficient knowledge-sharing process enables companies to develop and sustain a valuable competitive advantage in their market. Improving the flow of knowledge should be at the forefront of strategic planning for organizations through both technological and social initiatives that can improve overall knowledge-sharing practices.
Created using Powtoon. Okay. Here's some questions to consider regarding organizational knowledge sharing practices. Here's a table 13.4 regarding to 5 areas of concerning regarding the protection of data. Data is very important to protect. You don't, especially when you're dealing with consumer data that you've collected, right? Especially in the medical field, you want to protect the patient data because of the HIPAA, right? Here's table 13.5 in terms of procedures to protect IT. Concept check number 5. Here's a video related to the laws of cybersecurity.
I'd like you to consider for a moment that there are about 6,900 languages spoken on our planet daily. And these thousands of languages serve thousands of cultures, from the smallest community to the largest continent. Now, even with this vast diversity among our global population, we have some alternative languages and methods for communication that are understood by everybody. For example, the world has mathematics. If I have one apple and somebody gives me another apple, I have 2 apples. This is understood worldwide without fail. Now, as of today, the largest culture by far is that of the internet user. With 7.6 billion humans on Earth, around 3.6 billion of us are online and communicating with each other and institutions daily. Thus, another common language we all share, but most don't realize, is the networking protocols that the internet runs on and the social media platforms that tie us together, and emojis. We can't forget the emojis. But what our internet culture tends to lack is a common understanding to foster true understanding about cybersecurity and threats online. Outside of hardcore cybersecurity and IT people like myself, most people don't understand the language that is nerd. And so it is my job to be the best nerd to English translator I can be in order to help the world stay safe online. So without further ado, here are my 5 laws of cybersecurity that are designed to do just that. Law number 1, if there is a vulnerability, it will be exploited. No exceptions. Consider for a moment that when the first bank was conceived of and built, there was at least one person out there who thought, I want to rob that. In the more modern era, since the first computer bug was discovered, hackers, good and bad, have been looking for ways to get around the laws and framework that govern a computer system, a program, or even our society in general. Now think about this for a second. There are those out there who will literally try and hack absolutely everything within their capability. Now this could be the more basic exploit, like the person who figured out how to cover their car's license plate to go through an automatic toll booth for free. Or this could be the more obscure, such as infecting a complex computer network to derail an entire illegal nuclear weapons program, which actually happened in the mid-2000s. Finding ways around everything for both good and bad purposes is so ubiquitous today, we even have a term for it, life hacking. And with this, we'll move on to the second law. Everything is vulnerable in some way. We cannot assume that anything is safe, nor is anything off the table for hacking anymore. We've seen a series of massive breaches by corporations that literally spend millions annually on cyber defense strategies. From enormous retailers to gigantic health insurance providers, these corporations hold millions of records on virtually everyone in the United States and fall under multiple government compliance laws for data security, yet here we are. And we can go straight out of left field or even more obscure for examples of this law. So for decades, we've just assumed our computer processors are safe and harmless, just doing the job that they were meant to do. In the beginning of 2018, it was discovered that these technological workhorses are carrying a serious massive vulnerability that would allow a malicious hacker to wreak havoc on all of us. From minor to major, law number 2 is really inescapable. Now, before we go into law number 3, I'd like everybody in the audience, if you can, to look under your seat for something that my team put there. If you can. All right. Did anybody find anything? No? All right, you guys can stop now. You guys can stop now. I want to go on to law number 3. Humans trust, even when they shouldn't. And I'm sorry to make you all part of this talk, but it really helps to underscore my point here. Trust, quite frankly, sucks. Now, we need trust in our lives. We can't have a society without it. And we have positive expectations of our technology and those people that help us with it. We expect the light switch is going to flip on the light when we turn it on. We expect the mechanic we pay to fix our car to actually fix it and not rip us off. But we have to question the technological infrastructure and online people around us. This is our greatest vulnerability in cybersecurity. Now, because of trust, people fall for phishing scams. They believe the $20 antivirus they bought for their computer will turn it into Fort Knox. It won't. They also believe that the form they're filling out online is legitimate. It sometimes isn't. And it sounds weird to say that we have to combat trust, but we have to if we're going to survive the nonstop hacking that takes place. And with this, we can move on to law number 4. With innovation comes opportunity for exploitation. The world is full of brilliant people. Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone that made the world a whole lot smaller. Bill Gates created a global computer operating system that got humanity on the same technological page. Mark Zuckerberg created a social media platform used by billions daily to share our lives. However, with these evolutions in innovation and our technology come certain exploits. Now, we live in the age of IoT, or Internet of Things, and by virtue of this, our lives have hopefully been made a little easier. New, unique, innovative products are constantly being made to help us live in our homes, or drive our cars, or even improve our health. However, one of the biggest examples of innovation exploitation is IoT hacking. In 2016, a virus known as Mirai infected millions of IoT devices worldwide and then weaponized them against targets, creating some of the largest bandwidth attacks the internet has ever seen. As the world continues to develop and create amazing new technologies, we cannot forget the lesson of law number 4. And finally, law number 5, When in doubt, see law number 1. If there is a vulnerability, it will be exploited. No exceptions. Now, this one isn't a cop-out. It's really not. Every single issue with cybersecurity and our technology stems from a vulnerability of some kind. If we ever forget this, we are doing nothing but asking for trouble. Our ability to properly defend ourselves comes from understanding that human nature itself makes these laws immutable. And when we start thinking like a hacker is when we can actually stop them. So here's to our new common language that hopefully helps us and the world stay safe online. Thank you.
Okay. Some questions to consider related to 5 laws of cybersecurity. Here's a table exhibit regarding the grid and cloud computing and how it works. Concept check for learning objective number 6. Remember, you can find the responses and answers to these questions on your chapter outline. And that is the end. Now, chapter 13 is really heavily about IT and internet technology. These are really critical to your organization or business that you start, especially when you're doing retail. You want to keep track of customers and sales. Let me know what your thoughts on this chapter. If you have any questions, go ahead and send me an email or a Canvas message, or you could text me at my direct mobile phone and see what I can do to help you. Let me know. Thank you.